I think your job as someone who's probably running the business is to just create a really, really conducive environment for that work to happen.
If you consume great campaigns, great content, you will end up producing great content.
He kind of makes you feel like if you're not going to do it here, you're going to do it nowhere else. It's personal accountability, dude. It is a bunch of us saying, trust me. And one of the things he said stuck with us ever since. He's like, great social isn't what is created on social, it's whatever ends up on social.
Calm down before you stress up the groove. The energy a little different when the blessings accrue. Hey, who you talking to? Just know I ain't no regular fool. Could be anything in the world, but I can never be you because I stand tall like a moment.
Hey guys, this is Ayush and I'm back again with another podcast episode. Today we have PG Aditiya. If you are a creative person or if you're a freelancer or if you run an agency, this person and this podcast is a gem for you. He was the Chief Creative Officer of Dentsu Webchutney, which is one of the most impactful creative agencies that we have right now in India. Now, after all these years, he has started his own company, Talented.agency, and they are behind some of the most viral ads in the recent times. This includes this amazing Tanishq campaign as well. There is so much to learn from this podcast episode. If you as a creative agency owner or a freelancer have found this episode, do not watch this and do not share this with your friends because this is too valuable. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the CNTC Show. We have PG with us, the CCO of the year.
CCO of the year.
I saw Gautam's tweet that you guys didn't know for 3-4 days that this has been announced.
No man, so we kind of knew, but I think we decided to talk about it only like a couple of days later. Like we had a couple of other things going on during the week. So no, but yeah, it's good. I think it's a funny story though. So in terms of how these I think award rankings work people wise. So if you're in for a little boring trivia, so how award especially global shows award rankings are in they're not awarding you as a person as much as your work has scored the most basically in the show. So you get whatever points kind of go with that. And the piece of work which we submitted, which was a large part of my founding team, our swan song at our previous jobs at Webchutney. This campaign was called the Unfiltered History Tour with Vice News. So that's the one that's been kind of doing really well at shows across, and it did really well at the one show as well. And it amassed, I think, 134 points, okay, which is kind of dispersed amongst a bunch of golds, a bunch of silvers, one Grand Prix, all of that, right? The thing is, everyone who's credited gets to share those points. My tally as a person became 134. To my creative directors, Benaifer and Abbas, and my ECD, Ashwin, all of us shared this 134 goal, right? But funnily enough, the competition at the creative director level is mad. Okay, so the top scoring creative is at some 300 and something. Okay, she or he is scored that much. Okay. But at the ECD and the CCO level, the top was just 138. Okay, so I actually kind of got lucky because all of us have we're in the top 40, 50 types. But clearly the creative directors are vastly outperforming their CCOs. Because I get to do the same thing and I get to become CCO of the year along with the rest of the team, right? So it's worth kind of telling on that front, but no, that's
for the audience. CCO is Chief Creative Officer.
Chief Creative Officer.
Chief Creative. Do you miss Webchutney?
Terribly. Yeah, terribly. I think it was. I started out there as copywriter. 2012.
Wow.
So very exception to our generation kind of a thing, right? 9.5, 10 years in that job. I think so from that perspective, and I don't think entrepreneurship was ever part of the journey. If I'm not wrong, and I don't know how much this is worth, but the first time I'm telling this on camera, evidently there is a family curse, okay, that my great grandfather had was on the receiving end of in 1950 for some nonsense that he pulled off back then. And very strangely, my grandfather was like the last successful entrepreneur in the family, great-grandfather, last successful entrepreneur in the family. And he was bestowed this curse, okay, which was basically like, no one in your family for generations together will ever do as well in business.
Oh,
that was a curse, okay? And lo and behold, my family is the story of this this huge, whatever, mini fortune in the 50s being slowly dwindled down. You know?
Okay.
So when this kind of happened, and I was telling my dad, I'm like, okay, listen, I'm thinking of this. He's like, no problem. The curse only works for 2 generations, so it stops with me. I'm like, that's good to know, Dad. Okay, so here we are. But
so you're here to break the curse.
I am hoping to break the curse. I must say that I'm only feeling confident of it because of my co-founder, who is like Gautam Reghunath, who was also the CCO of Webchutney, who's on whose stead I am in this podcast. I hope I live up to your expectations. But yeah, man, I think he's like the master of side hustles, right? Like Gautam's has been running like 3 D2C startups over the last 5 years,
Oh, wow.
including this women lifestyle and accessories brand called Everpret. He runs this menstrual cup brand called Gaia, and this pet accessories brand called Urban Dog. And he's been doing the side hustle thing for kind of a long time. So I am glad he's picked talented to be his main hustle right now.
What is talented? And I want to understand, like, you had such a fairly large chunk of your life spent at Webchutney, right? And attrition is really common in agency culture. If you look at the average time that people are spending now at one agency, it's 1 year, 2 years at max, right? What made you stay for 10 years? Then after that, you left to start Talented. So there must be something integral that must have happened that now I want to start something of my own. What was that?
I think we kind of, we had, like, if I would ask you, Ayush, like, what are like 3 or 4 things that can improve in the agency business, right? And we were just talking about it before we hit record, and we kind of had similar things to say, right? I don't think this is a mystery for most of us on what needs to improve. We just plan to do it, and I think there is we want, and there are some general, as Bernie Sanders would say, I have this radical idea, and then he'll say something really simple, right? So it's one of those things. So in terms of how the agency business can improve, and we kind of felt that going independent was the right way to kind of do that. Specifically, like as like I think as a founder yourself, you kind of know that if it feels a little too new, it's better to prototype it first and not like impose it on some, a large network with so much to lose, which is why it made sense to kind of start from the ground up. In terms of what those radical ideas are, again, man, like I think we're for creative people, especially, I think we overall expect 3 very, very good things from our job. We want to do fantastic creative work without feeling that we are underpaid and without feeling that we need to burn out. I don't think 8 out of 10 creative people have expectations that are outside these 3 parts. And we want to build a company, an agency that can do that fairly successfully. That's what this is.
So this trio, right? So this trio is no burnouts, great creative work, and great pay. I want to start with pay, and this is something which, so we have tried to make sure that we do this in our agency as well, which we like to not call an agency, by the way. But we tried to offer more than market salaries, but then, like, I'll be very transparent. I know the salaries of product companies as well. What a fresher designer gets paid in an agency, what a fresher designer gets paid in a product company, the difference is huge, right? It's huge for a person to actually take money as the sole reason for their shift. And the problem with pay for me started with not me being willing to pay, but me not being able to pay, right? Okay. Because my clients weren't paying me enough. Right. And these are not like smaller companies, right? Like, as you work with some of the largest startups in the country, and even like some big conglomerates. Same goes for us. How do you think the pay thing is something which agencies need to fix, or the clients need to understand that they need to pay the agencies better?
I think it is on us to make the first move.
Okay.
There's this huge, kind of a almost this slightly, insecure mindset about kind of saying that, oh my God, tech is taking our people, and tech is copying our processes, and tech is copying our policies, and all of that, right? So if we kind of think about it, what we kind of, and I'm kind of digressing, but I'll get to the point in 30 seconds. But what we've all known as general chill work culture, okay, which is now considered good corporate policy across companies. Where did that start? It started here. Where did the table tennis table first get installed? It probably got installed in an agency. Where did people come to work in casuals first? They started in an agency, right? So I think we have influenced a very, very large part of corporate culture, which corporate culture, honestly, I don't know how much of it is visibly attributed to us again, but that is true. And now we had to kind of ask ourselves, what are the good ideas that they have going on that we can kind of take up, right?
Right.
And so the first thing to kind of start from a very simple point of view on how radical product companies deal with attrition from the get-go is they kind of bring people in. There is so much more skin in the game in a product-led startup than it is in agencies. So, for instance, agencies overall have been unfamiliar with the concept of ESOPs while working with tons and tons of clients who have it going on their side, and it's kind of a elephant in the room, man, kind of a scenario when it comes to stuff like that, right? I spent, like I said, about a decade of my life in my previous job,
right.
And when I kind of left, I left with and this is not to blame anyone, this is just the design of things, but what I left with was my legally mandated gratuity, right? So I don't think those are the expectations from people who are joining our industry today.
Correct.
And so one of the things that we're kind of doing from the ground up is copying a really good idea from tech, and infusing and trying to do ESOPs right in our company as well, and we expect over the next 2 to 3 years a significant part of the company, like any large tech startup, will be employee owned. It's also kind of telling because if you look at very, very large agencies, they're all named after their founders.
Yeah.
Right? Doyle, Dane, Bernbach, Ogilvy,
most of them.
Haggerty, all of this. So the name on the door is also a reflection of how the financial structure of the company is. Facebook isn't called Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
For a reason, right? So I think one of the reasons we're also called Talented is in one smooth way, we want to be named after every person in our company. The good stuff must be shared.
So you start another agency, and literally as somebody who's new to the agency world as a founder, I've been very, very acclimatized to the agency world as a freelancer, but as a founder, I'm still a couple of years into the journey. I realized 3 things that are happening. First thing is the gig economy is increasing at a crazy fast rate, right? We'll probably see 1 billion gig economy workers over the next couple of decades. That's the stat. Second is that there are tools now which are going to make the process of making content really, really fast. Of course, not creative ideas. That too, of course, GPT-3 is coming, which helps you get random thoughts, do at least slightly better than average copywriting. Then there are these companies that are installing content teams in-house, marketing teams in-house. I see these 3 kinds of changes happening in the industry. And then I realize, why an agency? Why aren't agencies dead yet? Why should we start another agency? Because you've just started one. I started one about a year and a half ago. why are we doing this? And do you think it's dead? If not, why not?
I think it's extremely. I think our best days are ahead of us, dude. I haven't been more optimistic about. Of course, it's in my interest to say this, okay? but I'm also. I'm actually very, very optimistic about what kind of value we can add. If we just start chasing slightly different goalposts with regard to our work, and if we fix our internal policies. It's incredible how little focus has been given to the way we do things internally. And I think our competitive advantage is going to be for places where people love working, always. And if you could have a company that kind of is the first version of its product need not be something radical, but if it's a great place to work, which understands what it takes to keep talent motivated and retain talent and all of that, it will just give its talent space to kind of innovate within the company. That's how companies like Netflix have pivoted from one business to the other, to the other, to the other, and all of that, right? So coming to your first question on what do we do about all the tools, right? And I'm like, fucking use them.
Okay.
Let's use them.
Yeah.
There's this very interesting product called Inspo, which I remember talking to you about a little earlier. Started by a fellow super ambitious serial entrepreneur like yourself. His name is Drupad, who was the founder of Haiku Jam earlier. Right. So I love Inspo, dude. It's basically it's a Google search for inspiration, basically, and he built that, and I'd love it. I for general copywriting, I'd love it. So I don't think these products are trying to take business away from us. They're actually trying to make business better for us. So I would be as passionate a customer of any of these tools, like Inspo and beyond. As the next person. Coming to what you were saying about in-housing, right? So I think a better part of my 6 to 9 months last year was kind of spent on asking friends and ex-colleagues who moved in-house and just trying to understand what their average day is like, pros and cons, what's working better, what's not, all of that.
Right.
And because the idea was, we kind of knew that the agency that's needed, the creative agency that's needed today is not one that has a better version of the agency job, but a better version of the in-house job.
Okay.
Right? So what can improve for in-house creatives overall? What are they kind of looking for? So lots of pros are that you're closer to the information, you're shooting a little lesser in the dark, you're closer to the metrics and the results and all of that. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but you are optimized for error prevention.
Correct.
In that way, right? So most of the times when we're in a room, we think we're there for error prevention.
Right.
So we keep giving 3 options and 4 options and 6 options, but we're like, you don't have to do that because there's probably an in-house team that's already giving that second option.
Right.
There's probably even a third agency partner or a content studio or a bunch of freelancers who are giving those options. You are there because of an external creative risk that wants to be taken by the company. They want someone who doesn't have as much information and the baggage that comes with information to offer them a perspective. So I think that made me a whole lot more aware of why are we going to be in the room now when we are. And
interesting.
I very openly ask clients who have in-house teams, I'm like, why is this brief not something your in-house team is able to take? Right? What's the gap?
Right.
Different answers. Sometimes it's expertise. A lot of in-house teams are still staffed by, you have a junior writer, junior designer, mid-writer, mid-designer, but reporting into a marketing head.
Right.
So you don't have someone who has the same level of strategic creative expertise at the top, so stuff like that. So that's one of it is the expertise part. Sometimes the answer is simply that, no man, I think our in-house teams are thinking a little too safe on this, or we just want someone without baggage on it and stuff like that. And I'm like, these are great reasons to be in a room. I'm not there because it's process, I'm there as a choice, right? And it actually feels very empowering, dude, in that sense. So that's one part. And secondly, one of the things is, one of the things that's changed in the life of an in-house creative is the classic, so when agency folks who are creative move to brand side, they move as creative people, 8 out of 10 times. Account managers, when they move to the brand side, they move as marketing managers, right? Correct. They don't move as account managers.
Yeah.
Right? So, so that JD does not exist in an in-house team, which means that your creative person doesn't have someone to follow up with them.
Correct.
Right? So you are, given your task and and you follow up and you stick to your commitment and you do it. You do it like a freelancer would,
right.
Basically, right? That a person who does that definitely deserves a premium. Someone who doesn't need following up, someone who actually sticks to their commitments, who's not going MIA and
right.
thinking that, the account manager's job, 30% of the job is to follow up. I am deciding that you will have to, put up with my tantrums. Like that kind of a creative person does not deserve a premium. So right. in this case, so what we're doing at Talented to kind of figure efficiencies is we have this little phrase called no follow-ups, which is, and it kind of comes, it feels like a slightly jokey, silly thing to say, but it's actually how we're trying to find efficiencies.
Right.
Okay. If you would 30 to 35% of an account manager's time, conservatively, from the folks that I've spoken to, say that 1/3 of my day goes in following up. Imagine if you could get that time back. And I'm not saying delays shouldn't exist. I think I'm the last person to not ask you for a little more time. But ghosting shouldn't exist. Just saying,
right.
It's your job to do it, shouldn't exist. So currently in Talented, following up is part of nobody's job list, including account management. And I think a similar thing, what you mentioned to me about how you guys were doing it at Owl was that time can be saved up for what account management is actually supposed to be, which is essentially an agency version of business strategy.
Correct.
And getting closer to the commercial reality of our clients and so on and so forth. So I think we get to be these guys who go from, executing your comms plan to being very closer to the commercial reality of your clients through a better understanding of what the account management JD is actually supposed to be.
Right.
That's pretty much what we're trying to do. The last point from what you mentioned, and specifically for creative people, this again, was talking to a friend and I was kind of asking her, because this was couldn't wrap my head around this part, right? I'm like, okay, dude, and she's doing very well. She's working in a fintech startup right now. And I was asking her, I'm like, buddy, tell me something. What do you do when you get a random idea? I'm like, okay, cool. You want to there's something you can do to help world hunger. There's something you can do to save this particular species or whatever. Whatever. We have creative people just have ideas in their head. So what do you do when you get that? And she was like, oh, I had this really nice idea for this thing. And I'm like, wow, that's great, man. What did you do with that? And she's like, oh, I just wrote it in my journal and I moved on. And I'm like, that is such a tragedy, dude. That is such a tragedy for a creative person, right? The privilege of this business is that if you have a great idea, agnostic of brand, agnostic of brief, it is in our business interest to put that into the real world. And I think creative people know what they feel when they are not able to exercise that, and we have to stop that coming at a price. And I think, which is why I think our best days are in front of us.
How do I tell my team to not do mediocre work? How does that actually happen in practice?
I think you probably, and I will 100% have a follow-up of this conversation with the person whose job this is in your company on this. Okay, so I will give them probably slightly sharper this thing on this part. But I think your job as someone who's probably running the business is to just create a really, really conducive environment for that work to happen. No obstacles, no this thing. It should kind of feel like now all I got to do is do the work. So that's where I think and Gautam, my co-founder, is fantastic at that. He kind of makes you feel like if you're not going to do it here, you're going to do it nowhere else, right? And that's probably where the business person kind of comes in.
And your creatives have now seen, right? How many creative campaigns has Talented executed? Razorpay is one I know.
Razorpay and Tanishq. We did the Mother's Day film for Tanishq. Written by Binayfa Dulani and one of our founding members, directed by Kopal Naitani, who is part of who's also the founder of Superfly Films. That and the campaign for Razorpay, which we did with Deepak Thomas, who directed it, from Lucifer Circus, which was the production.
Both these campaigns, I feel like different things that I like about each, right? Tanishq, it's so simple, like just one person and the other is voiceover, very simple art. Like from a production standpoint, which I usually the first thing I look at, like, oh, this is extremely simple. The idea is extremely powerful. And when you see the Razorpay campaign, like that Mehta tone is still stuck in my head. Like I remember I was just chanting that tone again and again with my friends and they were irritated as hell. It's like, what's so... My point was that probably they didn't get what I was seeing in the campaign, which is how is a B2B company marketing like this? A jingle in a B2B company. It was never heard of. So I want to know the entire journey. I'm so intrigued. I was so fascinated when I saw the campaign using a founder as the face, then the mask, the over-dramatized version of what happens in a company, right? And smaller creative choices, like you chose a very old-looking office to show that even new companies do it the old way. Like smaller stuff like this, which were
I'm glad you spotted
so
that.
Fascinating. Right. And I've seen that campaign like a million times now, and I just kept talking to my company, like talking to like my team, that we work with so many B2B brands. Why haven't we pitched this? Why haven't we pitched something like this? I want to know the entire process. How do you come up with an idea like this? How do you convince a client that yes, this jingle is what Razorpay needs to put out now? How does it happen?
I think for both the one person take. I'm sorry, the one person framing for Tanishq and for the genre and the treatment of Razorpay. It's our directors, man. It's Kopal and Deepak who kind of. I've never been happier to defer to the judgment of directors in this case. I think we also like. Okay, so let me just kind of start with, especially on this part, like the slightly old-looking office. There in Deepak's treatment note, slide 12 or 13, like literally a slide that said this is kind of how we want it, etc. So I think we kind of 90% of that credit, 100%. 90% of that credit, 100% goes to them. Yes, what a weird sentence. But on Razorpay particularly, I think we kind of discount how much personal accountability matters in our line of work.
Okay.
Dude, at some point, like I have to like, I mean, Razorpay also, like I think the team from the get-go, I think they started out as one, okay, cool, we need this, this slightly functional ad that needs to da-da-da. And it was like, no, but does it need to be this? Can it be this? Can it be this? Can it be this? And I think we kind of, where I will kind of credit our teams is, every time we pitched a more creative version of the idea, we didn't really make it feel like a less rational version of it. Because the ad still tells you everything that you need to know. There is zero loss in information. And I think what the Tanmay Bhatt marketing cinematic universe has done with a bunch of their work, including Cred, it was that, no 5 seconds, just tell exactly what you want, no fight there. Okay, so I love this little separation of church and state that they kind of did with the season 2 of the cred work as well. So coming back to this, I don't think either party was feeling like they've negotiated badly on what the product needs to be, because everyone was still getting what they kind of wanted. But in terms of like, okay, but why did that music track? And it wasn't supposed to be a soundtrack. It was supposed to be voiceover, which Deepak read the script for the voiceover, and he's like, this will be great as a song. And we're like, dude, that's brilliant. And he's like, okay, cool. And the song was the last thing we saw. So up until like the third version of the offline, there was no song. We were actually seeing it as voiceover. And then the song came in and we're like, okay, now this is a earworm type piece. Okay, we get it. But to answer your question of is there a trick to this is, I'd actually say fortunately, there's a good thing. It's personal accountability, dude. It is a bunch of us saying, trust me on this. It was Benaifer telling her team at Tanishq, trust me. And someone else saying in Razorpay, trust me. And I think we don't take ourselves seriously enough to say that more often. And we don't understand what to do when we go wrong.
I have more logistical questions as well. Like, for example, when you write like a jingle or a song, does it happen on when you're writing the campaign? Because you said in this case it didn't happen. So now I'm intrigued to know, how did it not happen? Because a song is written very differently from a voiceover. Was the voiceover already poetic in nature that it was easier to convert?
Yeah, it was one rhyming voiceover.
It was one rhyming voiceover.
It was one rhyming voiceover, which there is a certain silliness to advertising jingles, dude. Like it's not, that's why the reason they call it jingle and not lyrics is it's a kind of a jab, right?
I mean, it is silly, right? Like, and that, I think that's what makes it like stay in your head. Like in the Razorpay ad, you say okay randomly, like some person random voice saying okay. Like I was like, what is this? But that part just stuck with me. Like today, if I remember it, and I don't remember any other ad, there's something right with it, right? Because retention is incredible in advertising. Another thing is again more logistical in nature. You said that after the offline you realize that this is a song. Now my question is, and it's a very crude question, budgeting of the campaign is done way before, and adding a song, asking the music producer, and probably like the writer must have had to work on the campaign again. This adding days, adding time, adding commercials. Do you renegotiate with the company, or do you like, no, because we took the creative freedom and the creative lead on this, we'll make sure that it happens there?
Case by case, of course, but in this case, I think primarily, please make sure that your production partners get a good budget. I think it starts there. Because, like, for instance, dude, to take the Tanishq example, the very classical, those who excel at the don't suck at mediocrity mantra would probably be like, so then your production is not going to be too extensive. No, it's only one camera, it's only one frame. So we kind of look at it as like the volume of things. And if we're like, if you need more money, like where am I seeing this money on the screen? Show me the money, put some CG into it. That's how you get it. So I'm like, that's such a, I think the fact that the fact that Superfly and Kopal didn't have to say that, okay, because I'm only shooting one person, I only need half of the budget of the original, and because that kind of a conversation never really happened, we were able to do the voiceover with 5 different people. By the way, in the Tanishq film, if you've seen it, the person who's done the voiceover is actually Gautam.
Really?
Yeah, Gautam did the final voiceover.
Oh wow!
Because we had like 4 or 5 different people kind of come in and try out, and we were kind of like, you know what, like, because dude, like Gautam is that person. Like he is actually like, he is an ally. He's a proud ally, and like I think when Binay, for she goes by Binny, when Binny was kind of writing the script as well, she was like, yeah, I picture Gautam as this other guy, right? So we were like, he's got a baritone. Like if Gautam and Ayush had been doing this voiceover, guys, it would sound a whole lot better than my croaky voice. But But yeah, he's got a lovely little baritone, and so he and I went and recorded here in Indranagar somewhere, and
Oh, man.
so it's him as the final one. But we were able to just focus on craft a whole lot more because we didn't have those kind of constraints. So primarily, yes, please, we should do a better job of fighting for better budgets for our production partners, and which meant also in Razorpay, Deepak didn't have to worry about whether it was budgeted for a jingle or overall not, because it wasn't done in one manner where it was like this particular delivery. It didn't kind of function in that.
Right.
Secondly, I think, and probably the more important part also is, Deepak and myself and Benaifer spoke to each other directly. We did not need a con call with 6 different people to kind of, now you come in, can you hear me,
Right.
are you on mute? Like, it wasn't that kind of a setup. And my sense is mostly if we ensure that we're operating in high trust environments, shit like this gets easier.
So we're just talking about some really cool campaigns that you get inspired from or you've liked. And one thing which we do in the company is a thing called a green book, and how we treat it as it's an Excel sheet, Notion document, Google document, where you curate the best content that you see online. I'm of a big belief that what you consume is what you make. If you consume great campaigns, great content, you will end up producing great content. I want to understand what are some top 3-4 campaigns that you love or you have loved. And I want to segregate it into 2 parts. One is in India and another is internationally.
Of course, I think recently, Dentsu's been doing consistently good work. I think I really like a lot of the stuff that they're doing, especially how they've managed to figure how, and see, these are the I think the value of doing the same thing that you would do on social, but do it on print, and it just gets that level of crazy gravity associated with it. So Dentsu's print work especially has been really good. I know in terms of their TV work with what they did with the
fridge.
Before that, even what they did with the Tariq Pe Tariq piece, and with the late Puneet Rajkumar, and all of that, I think Dentsu's got a really good energy going around. The fact that their marketing is now something to kind of look forward to, and that takes time to build. And I think they've done it. I think a large part of it was kind of done in house, and if I know right, they partnered with this agency called Humor Me for the last campaign, which was the fridge Age Kulkarni one. And I remember I think the general internet was very divided about, oh, your understanding of what's in a fridge is so weird, like what do I do about the half cut lemon, and what do I do about this and that, and this is too exaggerated. And so that kind of reminds me of, so there's this one podcast called The Unfiltered CMO. Check it out whenever. And there was this one person who comes on that. I think there's this one episode called Why Does the Peddler Sing? Okay, and I'm forgetting the name of the guest, and I think this was based on a book he wrote called Why Does the Peddler Sing, where basically this is a huge ad veteran in the UK or in Australia, if I'm not wrong, who was basically talking about the value of advertising as entertainment. And the Why Does the Peddler Sing is basically a metaphor, like peddlers, like those who come on the street. They are singing their products. They want to entertain you to kind of get out of the house and be like, okay, what are you selling, right? So intrinsically, the value of entertainment and what entertainment is supposed to be is at the core of all things that we do. And his argument was that, then we've gone into this, under this guise of problem solving, we've kind of lost how entertaining we're actually supposed to be, and we're all peddlers and we need to sing. That was basically the idea. And I was also like, I think do you get jealous of great work?
Of course.
Same here.
Who
So
doesn't?
yeah, so like I after like a healthy week of being like super jealous about what is this, like why is everyone talking, blah, blah, blah. And then like, and obviously you form this internal monologue with the fact that yes, of course, what will they do about that half lemon, what will they do about this, correct, this campaign is not done. So you get into that zone. And then I was walking down Indranagar with my wife on Sunday, and um, we were headed somewhere, and she saw one of those fridge obituary banners, okay, and it's near Empire in Indranagar, and she had no context, and she's a teacher, and she in fact just stopped and she laughed. And she's like, oh my God, look at that. Okay. And I'm like, and she takes out her phone. And throughout this time, I'm silent. I'm like, I am just observing consumer behavior. Let me not, whatever, let me not influence this. And she took her phone out and clicked a picture, forwarded it to her like family groups, etc. And she's like, haha, that's so funny, right? And we kind of walked on, and then I'm like, yeah, you know what that is? That's Dunzo's campaign, and etc. and all of that. And then I'm like, dude, that's it. That's just people being entertained. Like, and I'm like, we gotta simplify this stuff sometimes. So I think Dunzo's done a good job of generally keeping their work entertaining. And I think for all that's been said about Cred's criticism, on the other hand, is like a bunch of the YouTube comments is, you guys should just be a marketing company. And there's a lot of this thing about, oh, are the Cred's points good? Does the product really live up to its advertising, stuff like that? All that's going on. But I think the advertising definitely has done its job of making the company generally be talked about. I think a lot of companies would want that for themselves. So I hope at some level, like, the product starts making sense on a regular basis for a large number of users, all of that. But yeah, the marketing has done its part. The agency we keep talking about at Talented, a lot is Uncommon. Niels Leonard, who's their creative head, is my biggest man crush since the last year and a half. He's also been on Uncensored CMO and on Black T-Shirts, the podcast that I was talking to you about. I think, and he, like, dude, so this is a guy, I think we've generally, I want to answer a question that you were asking off camera a little earlier with regard to design. Okay, and do the designers who work in advertising today feel like they are as, as consequential in the design world as those who are working on products, right? And I think that is a response to the fact that the way we have approached digital marketing and has been in a very kind of a way, right? And that's how we've all gone about it.
Right.
And that means that you need a funny line on a blue background, but it needs to be exactly half an hour after that news has been announced. That's what moment marketing is about. Moment marketing and craft are at opposite pillars of the spectrum. Think about that for a second. Most of the work that you have covered on general internet publications, etc., is work that is well timed but zero on craft. That's the animal we have created. Okay, and I think and at the core of it, the emphasis on craft has to return into our way of work. I think Kopal's vision to kind of shoot the entire Tanishq film with one person is a craft decision. Deepak's decision to do 3D printing on these masks after trying 5 different materials and like saying, no, you know what, we'll convert this voiceover to this, is a craft decision, right? So a lot of times, and Uncommon does a fabulous job of he's the industry craft jury chair at Cannes Lion this year. So obviously, right? So I think we need to, like, the difference between a lot of internet thinking agencies who are not able to break this glass ceiling to ask themselves, am I capable of doing work that doesn't originate on digital? That's actually a question about craft. It's not a question about about much else other than actually craft. And the more we prioritize crafts, the sooner we shatter that glass ceiling.
Interesting. And just for the audience, what we were talking about before, a lot of these really groundbreaking campaigns start offline, and they may not get the traction offline, but that story is now being sold online.
Absolutely.
And I really like it because and just the campaigns that we're talking about, the Dentsu campaign, the TV, the newspaper ads that I really love, I got to see them on Instagram.
Correct.
Same goes for Razorpay's campaign with Aves or Ankur or I'm forgetting the name of the Ragini. All of them I saw on Twitter, not on I don't have a newspaper subscription. I don't remember the last time I held a newspaper.
So when on the day the ad came out, I was like excited, right? Like our first print ad from Talented and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I go to so I live in Indranagar and I walk up to my nearest chai store and I'm like, do you have the Economic Times? He's like, no. So I walk up somewhere, do you have the Economic Times? No. So then I take a rick, I go till Tipsandra, okay,
Right.
and I'm like, I literally tell my rickshaw driver, I'm like, sir, just take me to a newspaper stall. That's all I want. And I finally find one. And so, no, you're right, dude. So this thinking of so there was this one client who deserves all the credit for at least our the way for helping us articulate what this is. His name is Aviral Avasti. He used to be our client at Uber when we were at Webchutney. This was about 4.5 years ago. And one of the things he said stuck with us ever since. He's like, great social isn't what is created on social, it's whatever ends up on social. Right?
I think this is a tweet. This is tweet of I'm gonna tweet this today. That this is the peak, because and sorry to interrupt you, but I think this has stayed with me. Like you told me this about an hour ago. This has stayed with me so much that this is one thing that I want to shout for next 1 week to my team. That when you're planning a social strategy, can we now plan it differently? Can we now not make everything originate from social itself? Because this opens so many doors.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, I think there's a that's I'll talk a little about how Gautam phrases this. He's like, it's not a print ad as much as a print-led viral opportunity. It's not a TV ad as much as a TV-led viral opportunity, right? So, if imagine all parts of your marketing as furniture in the living room, right? Internet is the television, and all of the other furniture is somehow pointing at it. Your sofa, your this thing, everything points towards your TV, right? So it's not like it doesn't exist, but this is how you know. So
Interesting.
I think if we companies like yours and companies like ours, I think we're able to we say like, this is the world that we kind of come from, so we can do earned media. We can do earned media very, very, very well, while also kind of having the ad. If for someone who's actually seeing it on a paper and not tweeting about it, the ad needs to work fantastic. Like, I'm sure there are 90% of the people who saw the Dentsu ad weren't the ones who tweeted about it.
Yeah.
But it worked just as well for them. So, yeah.
What's the long-term vision with Talented? And this goes to the very core of why you started, but
Yeah.
what do you want this to be known as? What are we doing?
100 incredible ideas.
100 incredible ideas. Like, why do you use like a static number like 100? Why not a?
It's just fun. It's fun to look at it that way. It's very tough, dude, to create 100 pieces of incredible work. I've seen, like, if over the last 10, 12 years, like, if I would ask you, like, tell me an incredible piece of work that Owl has done so far. Not taking anything away from the team, but I'm sure we can all count what we feel is incredible work in all our teams on our fingers, right?
Correct.
We create 100 incredible ideas. I don't think it's something that I don't think creative people are looking for something smart and complicated, and they want their portfolio to be the vision of the company.
Right.
That's it. Like, 100 great ideas means hopefully hundreds and hundreds of people getting to do so many pieces of work. I don't think it'll even happen in my lifetime.
Now that you put it that way, I think 100 is not a big number now, because that's actually true. In fact, like there's something which we talked about, that let's look at a traditional agency and like a big agency and see the campaigns that have actually stood out, and they have all the workforce that they could. They have all the clients that that one could possibly have, and still the
Yeah,
number
can
of
they name 100? I don't think most agencies can name. Yeah, but even if you were to look at filmographies, right? Like, isn't that how like generally like people who practice higher art forms, right?
Yeah.
Filmmakers, musicians, that's how they look at their work. I've done my 50th film. I've done my 75th album. I don't know if I mean, see, it depends on how we want to, like, what qualifies as something that deserves to be a part of the 100. That's where the fun comes in. So I think a lot of agencies have this culture of, especially the large ones, they do have a culture of internal awards, right? That does exist, but it's kind of done in one general let us appease each other kind of a way. But I think there's something actually very powerful over there, and like the idea is to obviously not get very pedantic about it, but our portfolio is really all we need for a vision, right? Do you actually need anything else other than to say that develop a ridiculously good portfolio? Whether that portfolio is, it's very likely that as we keep doing more work, as we know about in our line of work, better work means better clients, means better budget. So I don't need to have those as the actual things. My job is to actually just to build the bloody reel.
Makes sense. And so as we are coming to the end, I want to actually talk about something which is more on the client side.
Right.
This is something which I brainstorm a lot on, which is, where does a great marketing campaign starts? And I feel the answer to this question we've already done, which is everybody needs to take that accountability on every front. Like, it can't be just one person saying that I will produce the best. It has to happen on every single vertical. But a great marketing campaign also starts with a great brief.
Correct.
Now here, like, two questions. A, I've seen a great brief sometimes, in my opinion, used to be something which is whether the person knows exactly what they want. But listening to you today, I see that, and I also believe this, a lot of good creative work comes from iterations.
Right.
So now I'm confused. Now, should the person initially know exactly what they want, or should they not know what they want and just trust the process of iterations?
Understood. There's this term that we've seen ourselves do over a long time, which we kind of like recognize that, oh my God, we're really good at that part, right? It's called client building.
Okay.
It's like brand building, but it's for clients.
Okay.
I think one of the, this is what great account management also does as part of their jobs, which is we build great clients. We treat if the clients who we love and who we actually believe is rare talent in the marketing world, we treat them like the special snowflake that they are. And we want the best for them, dude. Like if that means that, doing something that like doing something in a slightly different way because they know that that's how it's going to work in their organization, or to like cheer them on when they get promoted and party together when good things happen to them, or even help them find their next job, whatever. That's right. Like the beauty of our line of work is that we're actually able to champion incredible clients. I think a large part of this is not a one-size-fits-all answer, but to actually look at whether we take client building really, really seriously, because we know in our line of work that if a client moves 3 jobs over 10 years, but she or he will 100% want to work with the people who they know their medical history and know and who kind of take that journey together. We were talking a little earlier about Fernando Machado,
Right.
who's known to be like the world's biggest creative marketer, right? And also like one of the biggest champions of agency client partnerships, as like,
We know it.
Yeah, as we know it, and to be like the recipe of like incredible success. I'm sure like the way that for Machado would work in terms of like, he says he's really good at briefing, but we don't know if he's really good at writing a brief or talking about it. We don't know if some clients might 100% prefer to have an incredibly good conversation over putting something down on paper as such. Some clients would do open briefs because they know that that's what they actually expect from their agency and take it fairly seriously when great things kind of come out of that, right?
Right.
A lot of times I think the skills that we need to develop is asking ourselves like, what does a high trust equation with this person look like? With this particular client kind of look like?
Interesting.
When account management is freed up from this bullshit follow-up part of their job, this is the kind of stuff they actually get to focus on, dude. To actually be able to say, you know what, I know we prefer written briefs, but I know for this person, she prefers to do it in this way and it will work. Trust me, let's do it. So that, I don't think we say trust me enough. A lot of times, you know, across, like how many times has a person said trust me and we've all been like, okay, I actually do trust you. And it kind of happens. So yeah, I personally don't have a one size fits all answer to that part, but I kind of believe and I mean, like, let this be the 75,000th time that Piyush Pandey is quoted in a podcast about advertising. But yeah, he actually believes in this, you know, get to know your client, get to actually know your client, and that's what it's kind of about. And that's the privilege of our work, dude. We actually get to do that very well. So one of the ideas were, in fact, like, and I hope we manifest this over the next 2 to 3 years, but to actually like identify great marketing talent from the time they're graduating. So I don't know what's stopping a creative agency from going to, let's say, a MICA or any other MBA school, an ISB, etc., and just like meeting great potential marketing talent, making a shortlist and being like, you know what, these 5 people in this batch are terrific. We don't know what your general futures are going to be. But it's fairly likely that, you know, over the next, in the first few years of your career, you might not have great power in the organizations that you're in, etc. But here's something you can tell them. 50 hours of time from talented's best minds will be at your service for the first couple of years. Use it as you please. We believe in you. We think you're going to be a great marketer. Shit like that we need to do, probably, to start with.
It's a really cool example of our business being a people's business, right? And the reason, like, my belief in this stays strong because a lot of time people go to tools to get things done, but eventually slide back to people because they don't feel that comfort.
Right.
The ability to not being able to function like a robot at all times, which is giving things a proper way. And I'll just take this conversation back to the initial question, which is writing the perfect brief. It comes down to trust, and I firmly believe in it. I think that's one thing, like our core mission, vision statement just lies on creative trust. Right? Can you think in the best interest of the person who's sitting in front of you?
Correct.
Right? The moment you start doing that, trust develops inherently.
Right.
And I think there's nothing more that I believe in the creative industry, that if you can say trust, if you say that trust me and the other person actually believes it, you've done your job. Like that's your job done beautifully well, because I feel it inculcates everything. Because if you don't do good creative work, trust will never be developed, right? So it inculcates a great creative work. It inculcates great communication, not ghosting, actually solving the other person's problem, and not like a lot of times I've also feel like creatives get just in their own minds and deliver something which doesn't solve a business problem. Right. That's also something which I see in a lot of like creative agencies, that while they do great creative work, it never solves the business problem. So I think all of this comes down to trust. So nothing more that I've believed more in this entire journey. Tell me an irrational fear that you have. Could be personal, could be professional.
Irrational fear. I have a lot of rational fears. I think I need to get better with research myself. I think a lot of times I believe that my creative process is research is not an intrinsic part of my creative process, and I think that is scary because a lot of times I think it's this general like it'll come kind of a thing is a little scary. I don't know if there are a lot of creative people who have kind of done this, but actually before that point, I've often wondered if I don't have a very specific ideological worldview, and that's why my self-image is not that of an artist.
Okay.
At all.
Okay.
And I think a lot of times, like the Niels Leonard, who we were kind of speaking about a little earlier, right? I think his self-image is an artist.
Interesting.
So a lot of great advertising folk today, I think, especially the ones who do great on craft, etc., right? If you ask them what they would be doing if they weren't doing this, they'd be doing something that puts them deeper into the artistic world a whole lot, right? And I think like I'm a failed film director from college. Okay. So I think my journey into advertising comes from this slightly career negative perspective of saying you couldn't make it in films. So I think in my own head, I have this little thing of I've kind of antagonized what it means to be an artist so that I can feel a little better about myself. I've kind of looked at artists as generally being troublemakers and like, people who can't this thing, but and that's just to make myself feel better, right, for the inner monologue. But on the other hand, I do know for a fact that everything that we've spoken about today, including craft, including actually having a very, very visible worldview, doesn't come if you don't kind of identify that way. So yeah, let's see, session 3 of therapy, we'll see how that goes.
I think we've come to the end of this podcast. Great. And I want to give now you the asking opportunity.
Okay.
If you had to ask me a question, like could be anything, could be personal, professional, about you, about anything, what would that question be?
Where does all this hustle come from, dude? If I can just expand on that question a little bit. Okay.
Yeah,
or actually, why don't you give me your first round of the answer and I'll have a follow-up.
I mean, I have a fairly long answer, but no, you go ahead with the question first.
No, so I think, I started working at 17. Okay. So like bunch of odd jobs and all of that, and worked a bunch through college, stuff like that. And I remember actually feeling like an exception at that point. And that was the kind of a self-pat on the back kind of a thing, right? But I think in the people around you, the folks your age right now, so many of y'all are doing this.
Yeah.
Like the great thing is you're not an exception.
Yeah.
Right? And how are you kind of dealing with, and I remember you telling me a little earlier that it's very hard to think, generally long-term about that, etc. So how do you deal with questions like that? How do you deal with your own toxic productivity monologue a little bit? You have a house where 3 rooms of your house are production setups overall. So yeah, what's
okay. So like since like 12 or 13, I've just been into this. Initially, it came from 2 things. One was I was extremely jealous of these kids who were getting opportunities that I wasn't, because I came from a small town and it was very close to Delhi. I used to go to Delhi and I used to see these kids being able to communicate better than I could. They used to play these sports that I never had the chance to even step into. And I was just extremely jealous that why can I not do this? What have I done wrong? I go to school every day. I am a nice kid. I study a lot. Why am I being devoid of these opportunities that these guys are getting? I was extremely jealous. So it came out of jealousy that, okay, internet is one thing which unites the both of us, which means if I excel in this area, we start on ground zero together, right? So we get that privilege is common. So I was able to, that's why I capitalized on the digital business and internet, because that brought the both of us on ground zero. So jealousy led to this. Second was money was always a big part of my life. Like I come from a fairly good background where I never thought of food on the table or roof on the head, but I saw my family struggle definitely like a lot. Like they didn't like good account managers don't let the struggle come to the creative team. Like great parents, they didn't let the struggle come to us as kids. But I always saw that money has led, or money has always been like a big part of like problems in our life, and a lot of like middle class folks, money's big. So these two things. I didn't want to be in a place where I'm devoid of opportunities. I didn't want a glass ceiling in my life ever. If I want to do something, I should have the potential to do everything. So yeah, these two things initially started off. Then the narrative came to be now another 3-4 things. One was I was really enjoying it. Because hustle, as much as now it's being the toxic hustle culture, I really don't believe in it. Like if you're enjoying it, then how is it toxic? If you don't enjoy it, then everything is toxic. So I was enjoying not every part of it, but like a good majority part of it. So it gave me that satisfaction. Second is it does give you rewards. How does it not give you rewards? Today I'm sitting with you because probably I wrote a message to Gautam and he replied to it. It came with a simple ask, right? And I'm getting to learn so much from you and from other entrepreneurs as well. Like today I'm interviewing one more founder. Next week I'm interviewing another founder. The ability, these are all rewards which are really value. Like getting your time is extremely valuable. So I think people don't look at the long-term picture, which is that 2-3 years of hustle will definitely get you rewards. And these are rewards that I want. So yeah, now I enjoy it. Now I enjoy the rewards as well. And now it's become part of who I am. I love to work. There are days, of course, where I feel extremely low, where I feel like, where you feel FOMO, right? Which is like a new part of our like pop culture. But I think it's okay. Like I think I've accepted this life and I like this life. I love this life, in fact. And now, of course, I've crossed that level of that I've achieved some financial freedom. So if I feel like, fuck it, I can't deal with this, you take a flight to Goa, you take a 3-day trip and you chill. And then you realize, I can't live this life. I have to go back to that life. So yeah, I think now I'm too acclimatized to it that I've started loving it. So yeah. Thank you so much for taking out the time. I think there were so many like nuggets of wisdom for anybody who runs an agency. More on a subjective front as to how to approach the agency life, because I think you have lived your life, like a good chunk of your life in an agency, and one of the leading ones in India, right? And now that you're starting another agency, and it takes me back to the conversation of should you even start an agency? I think after this conversation, I was in a I was in a state where I was like, no agency, nobody should start an agency, to a state where start an agency, but with a slightly different mindset. Be open to taking things from people and companies that are doing better. Like corporate took from agency the chill culture, why don't we take from them the skin in the game culture? The ability to offer better working hours, 5-day work weeks, all of that. I think I'm taking a lot from this podcast, and I feel anybody who runs an agency, and I know a lot of folks of starting agencies, like small 5 people, 10 people agencies, will learn a lot from this. So thank you so much for doing this.
Pleasure to be here, and this is also the apartment complex where Ayush lives is also the place where I used to live about 4-5 years ago. So it was nice coming back here as well. So, but yeah, very very impressed by the kind of stuff that you're doing, and yeah, I think I can't wait to see how you want to kind of shape the next few years.
Thank you so much. Perfect.
Hey guys, if you like this video, do comment down below कि और किस guest को हम इस podcast और इस show पे ला सकते हैं, and do like and hit the subscribe button. This really helps the YouTube algorithm suggest this video on the top. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all in the next one.